And welcome everyone to our latest edition of Reality Talks, where I'm joined by Peter Karaglanis, and Frances will be joining us in just a moment. I think she's still just connecting her computer. Let's see if she's there. Frances, good evening.
Hi.
We were just talking about you guys having a sneak peek this week.
We did.
So we'll get to that shortly. I know, Frances, you've been away at some business awards with White Pebble Interiors being nominated for a business award. So that's exciting. Really excited that you're a finalist. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but we could talk about that later. But this evening's episode of The Block was very interesting. So first off, let me introduce our two special guests. Peter Karaglanis, you are the host and owner, and I think you've got the chief presenter at Presenting Homes Australia. What's the title you use?
Principal presentation strategist.
Yes, very fancy. And Frances, I just know you as the guru of interior designers, but what title do you normally carry at White Pebble Interiors?
Design director, if I really need to have a title.
Well, it suits you well. So let's just focus on this evening's episode, and we may as well start right at the top with house number one. So we've got Kyle and Leslie from WA, and they just looked dejected to me. It just looked so hard and so challenging for them.
It's really sad, actually. When Peter and I did go through on Thursday, just how they haven't won 1 week, and yet their house was the one that had beautiful curved walls everywhere, just, which was a real nod to the 50s, I found. It was a really beautiful finish with those curved walls. So today, I think it was really sad for them. They had the only house, so I'm going to put my sustainability hat on here a lot tonight. They were the only house that I felt that was, had a sustainability colour, in that it was white. They had a white roof, which is going to reflect heat and keep the house as cool as possible. And their water feature was beautiful. Remember, Peter, we walked in and you could hear that gorgeous little water feature. It was really subtle. It wasn't a really big overload. So it had the sound of a water feature, not the fish and everything else, the more visual that house 2 had. So I feel really sad for house 1. I think it had a lot of good things about it, but there was obviously things that just weren't as good as the other houses.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, that Arctic white paneling on the front. I went past the block probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago with Tanya, and I must admit, at first glance, I've gone, I don't know whether I didn't dislike it, but I didn't know whether I liked it. Coming back around, in that 5 or 6 weeks time, I thought to myself, I actually do like it. And it was only because I hadn't seen anything like it before. I'm used to darker shades. We talked about the greys, and you might have your mottled greens and other things. But I actually think it will, provided they maintain it, whoever buys it, I actually think it will age extremely well. That little water feature in the front. Remember when we walked in, and I actually said to you, it actually has quite a calming effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I could imagine walking in and just going, I'm so glad to be home. And that's what that felt like for me, which I thought was really good.
Look, I think the white, I mention it from a sustainability perspective. I think it was too white. A whole house being white, particularly in the not a Luca bond, it was actually colour bond. It's too white, and it will be a pain to maintain in terms of keeping it clean. There was no contrast. I always think that houses need some sort of contrast, no matter what the material is. But it was just around the back, it really came to its own in the garden. Having the white there instead of the black was a much softer feeling and more inviting than having that really harsh black everywhere, which every other garden had. But anyway, look, they got the lowest score for a reason, I suppose. It just wasn't, the black around it was a bit too severe.
Yep.
But anyway, I feel sad for them.
Yeah, I think that, Look, the house will sell. I believe it'll
It
sell,
will sell.
and it'll be a well enjoyed and lived in home. And so we have to understand that one of the key things I say to vendors is your house is being sold in competition, not in isolation. And so most vendors believe they can almost turn anything out and it'll be lapped up because they've loved the home. It's just not the reality. And, I've said it, episode 1 through to now, is why I disagree with some of the interior designers. Is I'm about selling the home. And so there's a very different mindset that goes into that you and I discovered as we discussed it. However, in isolation, whoever buys that home is going to enjoy it. And, they'll put their unique touches to the place. It's just because the competition's so high and we're literally judging every single thing. And boy, did you and I get judgy going through the homes, didn't we? Yeah, I just think that they're contrasted with everything else. But if that house was sold in isolation, you think of everything else in the street. I actually like the fact that they didn't get rid of the original home. They did something new and amazing with it. And, there's
It doesn't
remnants
look like the original. You can't see
No.
one square of the original home, so they may as well have, got rid of it. Really, it doesn't have anything of the original home there.
Although, look, some of the footprints will be there. And if we consider this, we walked around the corner in Charming Street and we got to see, and even further down the same street where there'd been full knockdowns and rebuilds, and they were just so vanilla.
Yeah,
There
they
was
were
nothing.
awful.
Yeah. And so I think in 5, 10, 20 years' time, I know which will be judged much more worthy in that street. And definitely one will be much
I
more worthy.
completely agree. The
Yeah.
other things around the corner were definitely really cheap and
Yeah.
nasty.
Yeah.
They were nothing.
Can we
So
say
what about
yuck?
House 2?
Oh, Lee and Ash.
Well, they won.
They did tonight. There was actually a lot to like. And so let's, if we take a broad brush stroke to the property, there's a lot that I actually like there. As we went through the homes and we got into the minutiae, and that's the space that you and I tend to live in. We tend to notice everything. And that's where it got more challenging for me. And I know it was for you. So I actually think they did a pretty good job out the front of their place. I didn't find it, I must admit, when we first, in fact, House 2 is the one we went into first. And I think it was you who said to me, is there fish in there? And I've gone, what? And then Tanya's gone, look, there's fish. And so something as simple as that, I actually remembered that and I thought, hang on, that's actually a really good thing. It gave us pause to notice something very, very different and start to see that these guys have thought about their home more than just bricks and mortar. There's a little bit of personality in there. I did like the garden. I loved the fence. Okay, so
and the fence started to grow on me if the plants actually really do take over that fence and those trailing plants that they've got don't die, and then they're able to have it softened with the plants. Then I think the fence is good that it's curvaceous.
Yep, and I think and we'll talk a little bit later about House 3 when we when we talk about fences. Now, for those who may not remember, House 2 had the fence which was printed concrete. So it looks like a whole bunch of spaghettis all lined up and just built up.
It's basket weave.
Yep. And so when I first saw that some weeks ago, I actually liked it straight away. And the reason I did is the curves in it just gave it something different. And I know when I'm doing some landscaping, so when we're putting borders in, I deliberately put these little little curves all the way through it, only because it feels much more organic, especially in a garden. And you can do a lot more with it. Where some people, everything's just metric and it's squared out. I was actually thinking of the Hanging Gardens. Oh, what was that building in history that had it?
Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what went through my mind when I first saw it. And straight away I've gone, I know what they're trying to do here. And so we may sound like we're laboring on the fence, but, as I've said before, And the stats of this: a decision on buying a home is made within the first 7 to 10 seconds of seeing it. It is that quick. Street appeal is what it's all about. And I was imagining that as this matured, and you see the plants come out of it, and it was good because they had a bunch of different plants. It wasn't just vines. I thought this is actually going to be really, really fantastic. So yeah, I did like it. It'll be a living, breathing, like monolith, for want of a better things, that's actually supposed to be there. So for me, I gave 10 out of 10 for that. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was really nice. And I think what you're talking about, interestingly, around organic shapes in the garden is exactly how we think about it from an interiors perspective. And I know I've mentioned it on here several times that having organic shapes softens a space instantly. So having that represented in the garden was awesome. What was a bit of a shame, though, is they had those big, massive square concrete blocks leading to the front door. And it would have been really nice if they had have been round or an organic shape like they were used in other gardens, in other houses. I think that would have topped off that organic feel in that space. But it was a really nice job. So there's a reason why they won that, and they deserve to win it with what they did.
Yeah, and I just think they finished the little things off well. It was a good selection of plants that we saw in there. I thought the grass, I think where the grass was, it was bedded in pretty well. Coming into the entrance, what was your thought of going inside to the entrance of House 2?
I've got to remember. I really, when we were there, because we didn't go in order. I know House 2 is the one we went in first. So I really can't remember now what was actually in the entrance. I think I've got House 1 in my mind.
So now that's actually really telling, because I'm having trouble trying to remember House 2.
I can't remember House.
See, that's
I
an
just
issue for
remember
me.
when we got to the living, and I just went, oh, I cannot believe that they've got those couple of chairs under the stairs, which is completely useless. And the judges said today, oh, it's an extension of the living room. I'm like, how can that possibly be an extension of the living room when it's a thoroughfare? And I couldn't believe how small that living area really was in real life. I think overall, all the homes project much larger on TV and also in the images, in their promotional images, because I've looked at all of them, than they do in reality. So everything for me was much smaller in real life than what it was on TV or in the photos, the promotional photos.
And that's actually so true. Now, the reason I actually asked that question, so Dave Palmer really liked where that staircase was, and they had those chairs. I actually thought it looked ridiculous in real life. I just looked at it and it was mismatched. You've got organic curves.
Space.
Yeah. It's like an ashtray and a motorbike, and I've actually used that.
I couldn't believe what a waste of space it was.
Yeah, totally. And so the interesting thing is, I had trouble trying to remember the entrance to 2. But as we go to some of the other houses, I could actually remember them.
Yeah, I can remember the others as well.
Yeah, and that was really telling.
It is.
So, and so I think the judges made something of their entrance when there was really nothing. They pumped the tires up a little bit, and it really is just trying to remember it. Oh, in fact, actually, what I do remember was where you go in and you turn right into that office that's been turned into a bedroom again. So that was the redo room.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we looked at that when we went in, but as I walked in, and where you go in and you turn right, I looked at it and I thought, I'm not actually feeling anything. It actually didn't feel like a natural drift off to the right. Something about it didn't invite me in, and I normally feel it. And with that one, I actually didn't. So let's consider.
I think right at the end of tonight, we have to call it. Who do we think is going to win the auctions? Because it's very different on auction day, because I've already had my bet with my kids. Said this is who I think is going to win, and this is who I think is not going to sell. So let's save that to the end. We can't not leave tonight.
We're not going to divulge. Can I tell you,
putting our bets forward? Sorry?
My inbox has absolutely been full with people wanting to know who do I think is going to win. In fact, one of a friend of mine, Alana, she is a very well-regarded agent in South Africa. And they actually showed this in South Africa. Wow. And she was asking me. Okay, I'm not
Oh,
telling
well,
you.
we've got to disclose it at the end of the show. Let's go to
We
house number
shall.
3.
So Brett and Christy. So they did something I liked a lot. I'm actually going to start in this area, and that is the slab in their garage. So they put the epoxy down, they put the confetti down, and that's a really interesting thing. And it's the one time I'm going to absolutely disagree with Steph. Her comment on her slab, I totally disagreed with, and she's got it
And
wrong.
I agree with her.
No,
Why
I'll
would
tell
you
you
paint
why in a
over
moment.
burnished concrete and it's a garage? Why would you paint? I agreed with her.
Who said painting?
No, but that's what Marty said. Why don't it needs to be painted?
Yeah, I'll share my thoughts on that, and it'll show you'll understand when I get ready for it. So now with that slab, they painted it, they put the sprinkles over it. The epoxy is actually a really good product, especially in a garage. One of the key functions of it is not only aesthetically does it look better, but this is why what I feel Steph missed with her one. I know we're doing a little bit of cross-pollination here, is one of the worst things in any garage is concrete dust. It's terrible. It ends up in everything, goes everywhere. As we know, concrete is porous. Anytime you spill anything in there, it'll sit and then it'll go into it and it'll just muck it up a whole lot. And so what they did there is they created an inviting environment. I really liked the Graphico wallpaper. That was a nod to the original design and elevation of that home. So a lady came on, her parents built it. I think she said 1947.
That's house 2 though.
What's house 2, was it?
That was house 2. They got the blueprint of the house and they did the Graphico. That was house 2.
So I've missed,
house 3 didn't do that.
Oh, they had another Graphico one.
No,
I was on the roof.
That was house 4.
So there we go. My notes are all over the joint. Forget me.
That's right.
But
that's okay.
I thought it looked
house
good.
House 4 had it on the ceiling.
Yeah, they did too.
And house 5 had the Porsche.
Porsche, yeah. I like the Porsche actually.
So I don't think house 3 had anything.
Except the floor.
Yeah, they had,
To tell the truth, we didn't really go into the garages. When we went through, they were full of boxes and it was like the world's biggest storage
I think there was only a
cupboard.
couple I don't think we went into this one, and we certainly didn't go into 2 because we would have really remembered the blue. So that was probably closed. What I distinctly remember about house 3, and I said it so many times, and they showed it tonight, and I don't think it was as obvious tonight in terms of how bad it is, in my view, was the fence. And it's just a paling fence that's been painted black, and because there's movement, because it's natural timber, it's not black in all the bits where it's moving, and that's going to continue to happen over time. It was so high. There was no connection with the street. There's no connection with what's going on in your community. I'm surprised that it passed Bayside regulations, because you're not allowed to have a fence that high that you can't see through normally in Bayside. I just found it was really cheap and nasty. And then the other thing I didn't like about house 3 is you went through this paling fence gate, and that was your entry into the home. It was so unimpressive. And then you come to this deck, and the deck was beautiful. It had that beautiful border around it. I know I said to you the deck nails have been, or the screws have been done properly. They've double screwed it. It was flush, beautiful. But there was no front door. You had the massive sliding doors that went straight into the living, or you had the smaller door that went straight into what they're calling that second living area that had the projector. And I thought the projector was awesome. But there was no obvious front door. So you go through a black paling fence that's, 6 foot high, and then you're in this back front garden thing. But the judges really liked it. I thought it was terrible. It had no entrance. It had no grandeur. It just had nothing. It was like, where am I going here? I thought it was awful. And I'm not sure whether on TV it played out as clearly as what it did when you went through that paling fence with no front door.
Like, you know how when you do houses up, you give them a name. So you get those little plaques for the door. In fact, when I went through the other day, and I didn't say it to you, and I thought this one needs to be Pentridge. Because those walls, it was cheap and nasty. In my opinion,
what's such a shame is its contrast with the charred ash facade. And
Mm,
charred ash is such an expensive, well, that's the back. What's
mm.
just being shown now is a really expensive finish. It's very, very prestigious. It's absolutely stunning.
Yep.
But the charred ash is what all of the facade was, and then they had this cheap paling fence. I just couldn't understand it. I thought it was such a shame. I don't know if they ran out of money. They didn't know what they were doing. It was such a letdown for me. That just the
Look,
whole entrance area.
okay, now you mentioned the projector before. I looked at
Mm.
that and I thought it would look terrible. Marty Fox had the same initial thing. So
Darren
here's the
loved
key
it.
thing. Yeah, but functionality. So yeah, I can understand why they had it there, but that bare wall looked terrible. I'm sitting. So if you weren't watching
True.
TV or something or other, I thought I knew what the wall was for. I thought, but it actually doesn't look good. It's not inviting. And so
The
in my
only thing though that I think you can get away with it though is I
yeah,
completely agree. It was a big white wall, and it was actually very prevalent on on TV tonight.
yeah,
But when we were actually in that space, I don't think it was as obvious because it's not the wall that you see when you're going through the home.
yeah.
You only see it when you're coming back from the back part and walking through. So it's actually not an area that a lot of people are going to go through. So I could almost live with that or leave that be just because I know that there's a projector there and it's nicer than having the TV on a wall. I thought it made it feel more calm. I'd have some plants there that you could easily move.
So I would have put a recess into the roof, so you could have had it. You know, whether you
Yes.
could go up, yeah, and actually had a screen drop down and actually have
Yeah.
something on that wall.
Yeah.
And we're not talking sheep stations worth of money. It's actually a really cost effective thing considering the expense of the home. So, you know, as I said, I love the deck. Knowing the story now that the landscapers were given the kibosh, and this was actually finished off by the chippies. All the planting, everything, a little bit of a help with the gardener from House One, mate. I'll tell you what, and I don't like bagging out trades, but if those the other trades, but if those chippies and those builders ever wanted to expand into landscaping, I think they've proved themselves. They did a great job.
Yeah, they did, and the grass was beautiful as well.
Yeah, I was
I
really
just
pleased with it.
when they kept talking about, street appeal, that house doesn't have street appeal because
No.
it sits behind a black paling fence. There is zero street appeal. So I thought that the judges tonight were actually quite hypocritical in that, house two, it's curb appeal or whatever. Darren's 2 words, he didn't know what 2 words were. It was, 3 syllables, not 3 words. But if he's talking about curb appeal, that house has got zeros, but they didn't even mention that. So I found it interesting what the judges pick up on and don't pick up on.
And
It's interesting. I just scrolled through the photos so you could see them, and there were no photos of the front of the house. None.
Correct.
And the
But they
reason
couldn't be able to
is,
take it.
yeah, it's so
What
big.
I'm just talking about now, Russ. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's zero photos.
Interestingly
Wow.
enough, now it's not an absolute flat wall. What you can't see in photos or on TV is that instead of it just running flat all the way down, there's these little bits that come in and out. So if you remember, I said to you on the outside, you're going to have weeds and stuff growing there. So instead of it being one big flat wall, it sort of does sort of like this stuff. Oh, hang on, let me see. Say that.
Shiplap.
Yeah. And so there's these little gaps. Remember where they've left space for a little bit of a garden between the footpath,
Yes.
yeah,
And
and the
there's no
fence.
plantings.
There's no planting. There's nothing there.
Mm.
Now, had they put plants there, it would have actually softened it. But
It would
I,
have.
I thought, what a
And
waste.
plants look amazing against black, which is why a lot of people paint their paling fences monument.
Yeah,
This wasn't
absolutely.
even monument, it was black.
And what they could have done is actually left little gaps between palings to allow light through. So not enough for people to have a sticky beak, but enough to actually break up that wall inside and out. And so anyway, I'm not quite sure of the reasoning behind it. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. Yeah.
So disappointing.
So Stefan Gian's house 4.
Yeah. Look, I actually think I'm going to put my sustainability hat on. Far too black. The rear of their house faces north. Okay, so the south at the front is not going to be a major issue, but the rear faces north. It's going to get really hot, and it's a black roof. Now, I'll mention here now as well, when we went there on Thursday, Peter, it was 19 degrees. And we made a comment, and Tanya made a comment, or probably Tanya and I were really on top of this, how hot the houses were. And it was 19 degrees. So I don't even want to think about how hot these houses are going to be in summer, or just in a day like today, how hot they would have been. And yes, yeah, you can put the aircon on, but that's not what it's about. It's about, well, that's what I think, that you should be able to live in a house comfortably without using any artificial heating or cooling. And those houses have not been designed. They've got too many skylights facing the wrong way, far too many of them, because it was sponsored by Velux, I believe. Hot boxes, such hot boxes. But does it look good? Again, like the White House, I think it's too black. There's not enough contrast. However, the garden pops because of that. And the tree in their front garden is magnificent. And I know the three of us kept commenting on all the trees. The established trees were beautiful. That tree is stunning. And it's such a showcase in their front garden. And I'm so glad that all of the houses retained the mature trees, because it just goes to show you the feeling that it creates. And I wish more people that were renovating and developing would retain the established trees, because they add so much.
Oh, don't they? Well, it was really interesting. It was actually the past couple of weeks, having Dave Franklin's been excellent. And so he actually noted, it was like a lesson in Latin tonight. He said there was over 20 species of plants just in that front garden, and he was ripping them off.
So he loves his Latin.
He does everything to me. Tanya will tell you this. Every plant is a rose. Doesn't matter what it is, it's a rose. And then Tanya's dad was a grower. He grew a special type of tomato in New Zealand, exported all over the world. He was a plant man. Tanya grew up with that. And so me talking plants when Tanya's around, it's like fingers on a blackboard to her. It does her head in, because she's savvy and I'm not. So I loved it. I got to say, when we went into the front yard and the backyard, the calmness that was in those gardens, it was serene. And
I think the whole house had that. The whole house was calm. The greens, it was soft and calm. That's an amazing image that's up now. The whole thing is calm. The lighting's beautiful, and I think the lighting really adds to the calmness. The fact they've got a lot of decorative lighting. We won't need to talk about functionality, because we've gone through all of that in the past. But I still feel that that house has a beautiful aura about it. And calming, I think that is the right word, Peter.
So we actually met the guys that built the back deck when we were there. I was having a chat with them on site, and it was just really interesting. I didn't know who they were. Maybe I should have. And I started sharing my thoughts on that, and the superlatives just kept flowing. I could see them smiling. They go, "Thanks, mate. We built it." And
they had a really good deck. It was a proper double screwed deck. They had the beautiful freeform concrete outdoor kitchen area. I mean, that was obviously discussed last week. So, but just everything is calming. I mean, it's a real shame they didn't win it. I think that they actually had a better entrance than House 2. I mean, it was so close in the scoring anyway. I think it was a bit nicer. I think it was softer, especially having the established tree. That for me was more important than having a pond.
Well, established front and back.
Yeah, established front and back, exactly. So, and I disagree with Darren when he said, let me ask you, do you remember their entry?
Oh, yeah,
we talked about it.
Yeah.
So Darren said, I don't think that their hallway is bright enough. Now, my argument to that is, why do you need a bright hallway? It's an entrance area. You might have, you have ambient light, which is exactly what they had. They have the beautiful up and down lights in their hallway. Why do you need something that's got task lighting in an area that you don't need task lighting? I think it creates it's an invitation to come into the home when you've got really beautiful ambient lighting. So I completely disagreed with him. And why do you need a glass front door? they were just going to look at a black painted fence because I didn't like their black painted fence in their front garden. It was too severe. So
Yep.
why do you want a glass door there? I had no issue with their entry at all. What about you?
No, I actually liked coming in. In fact, Be Right Agent said calming is a great word for it, and I think you're spot on there, Be Right Agent. I actually loved our entrance coming in. Your comment, we both liked it, but your sustainability cap kicked in again, and you got a great big space. We could do this with it, and and I found it really interesting being around you actually on site. And your mind is working to your design cues and the things that really mean a lot to you, and my mind is working away at things, and I found that contrast between us was actually really enthralling because we were just looking at the same things just in a different way. I love their entrance. I just finished the house up in Marion Avenue, One Turner South. It would have been as wide and as long as that, except there was a staircase that went up, and we put in some really nice sconces that actually weren't even that expensive. But the light that came off was just exquisite. It had a nice little bow tie shadow in it, and the colors we used and the flooring we used black butt going into there, and it felt grand, it felt welcoming. And the reason I mentioned Marion is as I walked into that one, I've gone, oh, I have that same feeling again.
But I think that's probably got to do with the lighting, because you commented on it on the day as well.
Yeah, I love their sponsors.
I know that I did mention about the width of the hallway being large, but it was nothing like House 5, which from a sustainability head, I just couldn't cope with that entrance at all. Even though it was grand, it was just such a waste of energy. But so I could cope with 4's entry a lot more than 5 from a sustainability perspective.
Right, when you hit 5, I was like,
it's just like, this is just one big this is just one big air conditioning waste of space. That's all I kept thinking. Anyway,
so the key thing, my observation is this: between all the homes, I actually think House 4, and it's a very indelicate way of saying this, is screwed together a lot better than all the rest.
Yeah, it is.
I just think not only the finishing, but it just has that sense of strength and longevity. And it's not to say the others are bad, but we can see, and as Dave Franklin mentioned tonight, you can see, without winning an extra 130K, where it all went into it, because everything about it exuded quality. And where you get quality, you get longevity. And that's not only quality in terms of the finishing, but also the craftsmanship. And they're just the little things, but little things over a long time make a really big difference. So
I'll leave my comments about that until after we've done 5. But I do agree with you that the way House 4 has come together, I think it's going to stand the test of time a lot longer than the others. And that is obviously, there are still really good elements and components of the other homes. I just think that the continuity and flow is really consistent with 5 more than any of the others. And it's calm. Sure. That is the umbrella word for House 4. From the minute you enter the minute you see it from the street, all the way through to the garden, it's calm.
There is one thing that I can't remember how many weeks ago, Russ may be able to tell us when they finished off the kitchen. And I said it then. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Stefan Gian, but seeing it on screen and then seeing it in life just did my head in. Those lights above the cooktop. I just looked at that, and if I thought it looked dumb on screen, it was just dumb.
It's the only
thing,
balls up that they do.
And I don't want to say it. I really did not want to say it.
No, but
we chatted it together. So it was you, me, and Tanya.
She's not a cook.
And we're looking at it. Yeah.
She's not a cook.
It's easy. It's easy to fix too. So House 5, Eliza and Liberty. Now I want to give those girls. This is our last one here. I want to give them 22.5 out of 10 for pure entertainment factor in this whole series. And I want to give them 33 for facial expressions.
Oh, yeah, they're brilliant.
I know. Facial
I think
expressions.
especially, oh my God, I get them confused. The one that always sits on the left, she's got the
I think
best
that's
facial
Eliza.
expressions.
Russ
I
might
think
be
it's
able to help me
Eliza.
with that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Eliza.
What
Now,
a
look,
crack
I'm
up
really
those
glad
guys.
you've got the image up here, Russ, because it's a really good visual representation. What I loved that they did that no one else did, and I said it when I was with you, Peter, was they used the original bricks and they kept them the original colour, which is what House 1 should have done, and not painted it that hideous grey. They kept it and they made it a little bit interesting. I mean, the architect probably did this, but I love the fact and the detail in the brick as well. So you can see they've got the little dark patches as well. That's the original pointing from the original house. I thought it was such a beautiful nod to the original place. And the timber on the garage just integrated with the brick so beautifully. It's going to be a maintenance nightmare because that is every 12 months they're going to have to redo that. But it was beautiful. I really, really love that. The only thing I don't like, and I said that to you on the day as well, was it's this tiny, actually the judges mentioned it, this tiny, narrow passageway that you think you're going to go to the back garden on the left-hand side of the garage to get to the door. Really bad. It was just too narrow. And I think they mentioned it needs to be 1.2 meters or something like that. So, but
so if we go
I
back
love
to
the brick.
if we go back to the entrance again, Russ, I'll just get you to go back. Okay, so if we have a look at the original brick, Pythagoras would have been proud of that one. It's just the perfect angle. I actually said to you,
I could do well at maths was Pythagoras' theorem.
So consider this. If we actually, I want you to look at it. I said to you on the day, it reminds me of the 1950s, the 1960s uniting churches and the churches that were built at the time. And so they were so common in our suburbs. And I looked at that and I felt very warm inside. It really celebrated the Australia of yesteryear. Now, if we have a look at the roof line on that, and so we see the arbor, right? I see a face. I see it winking at us.
Yes.
And a forced smile through the arbor with some big teeth. So there we go. And I haven't had a drink, and that's what I'm seeing.
I know, I can see it. Now that you've mentioned it, I can see it as well.
Yeah.
But don't you think it's so much softer though than the other? That severe black. The timber just softens it. The cream brick softens it. It's just not as severe as these solid black homes. It's just more inviting. So I'm glad that they did this rather than going down what the others were doing.
The only thing you and I picked on was the front door. So we go back to number 1 again, Russ. So when we were there, they had the outdoor setting.
Yes.
And Darren Palmer said, so that's not to confuse that with the front entrance.
Correct.
There's something really disconnected with how they did this. And look, it's not going to stop anyone by it. Could I live with a house with that front? No problem. What's making this work, if we actually have a look at the sconces, so the sconces at the front, and as we go down the side, I love the bow tie effect it gives with lighting. It's welcoming. The entrance, in some of the footage I shot, in fact, the one where you and I are talking, I used the footage where Tanya walked around the corner and I caught her reaction to the front of the house going in there into that grand entrance. I'm going to disagree with you, Francis. I loved it. I love
the grand entrance.
Yeah, I
think it looks amazing. I think it looks great. But from a sustainability perspective, it's a nightmare.
I want it to be unsustainable and beautiful.
I know, and that's why people have different objectives with their homes.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly thought once we went down that little laneway, and Darren Palmer said it's only a metre, and he was right. He said 1.2. It would have been good. I think it was someone mentioned that they should have had what's the name, to like an arbor over it all the way
I
down.
think Shana said that. It would have helped you guide you down
Yeah,
to
yeah.
what then becomes a really impressive entrance because it's all glazed. And they showed that really well on TV tonight.
Yeah.
And it did look impressive. Don't get me wrong. It was really impressive. It was really a beautiful surprise after you walk down this tiny, narrow, I think I'm going down to get the lawnmower. And then you see this really beautiful entrance. I completely agree with you.
It was delicious. And in fact, if we think over the last week, they got in very late a team to do the deck. It was like almost within a day or two. And they went through all sorts of hell to make sure the posts were at the right height. They had to keep readjusting it. But I honestly think whoever the trades were who finished that off, those guys did an absolute magnificent job. I was thoroughly impressed. Yeah. And that thing was bolted together extremely well. I love homes where you got just a contrast. You got the brickwork and you got the flat panels. And when you add the timber into it, it was just celebrating all the different things.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a beautiful entrance. I think we're talking about House 4 being so coordinated, so calm, so consistent throughout. And I think this is the house that is really higgledy-piggledy. They've got a few different looks going on. They've got a few statement things going on, like the color of their stove. They've got very different bathrooms. So it is a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
What I was so disappointed about when we went inside with this house, and it was so different to my reaction when I saw it on TV, was the living room. And that living room is such a big space, and it's the biggest one out of all the houses. And yet they've split it in half by putting that silly round fire in the middle of the space in a thoroughfare. So actually the space, their living room, is smaller than what it is in any of the other houses. In fact, House 2 and House 5 have got the same seating and the same probably footprint out of all the houses. Tiny, tiny little living areas. You can get a sofa and that's it. And I was so disappointed how they designed that space because it was the biggest one and had the most potential. And yet on TV, we loved it. Go on, Russ.
While we're on the subjects of the worst spaces, I really want to bring this up.
Oh, this one?
Oh,
yeah.
Yep.
In real life, it's terrible.
It's like a dog vomited on the wall and the roof.
So I don't know if you remember, I actually didn't mind this when this was revealed. When we went in there, it was like gaspingly, it was, and it's a really small space. It's really small. And what they've done with the curtains is they've brought them 30 centimeters in the space to make the room even smaller, which I've got no idea why they did that. It's awful. So you're spot on, Russ. It's not calming. No one's going to be able to sleep in there.
No.
Yeah.
And that's just another bad choice.
I actually don't get vertigo, but I actually said to Francis and Tanya, I go, I'm getting vertigo in this room. It was, could you imagine coming home from a big night with the girls and then lying under that thing? It'd be like morning sickness for the whole time you're there.
Oh, crikey.
Look, I think House 5 and House 2 are very polarizing. You either love the quirkiness because they're both quite quirky and they're both disjointed, or what's going to sell House 2? Oh, the hot pink coffee maker, of course. That's what's going to sell House 2.
We brought that up, didn't we?
I made sure that Peter got a photo of me with the hot pink coffee maker because
when they make bank on that house, we'll put it down to the coffee maker.
I'm being so facetious. But both those houses are polarizing. They're both very bright. They're both disjointed in the way they've been designed. So I'm not sure they're going to be.
Okay, so just explain disjointed.
So there's no continuity, or there's not as much continuity when you move from one room to the other. So, in their kitchen, House 5, you've got this bright orange, bright orange stove, but then the bright bedroom. And then you've got another room that was the, what was their other bedroom? Oh, with all the jungle or whatever. Look, with kids' rooms, you can sort of get away with it. But if you compare those homes with 4 and 1, 1 was also very calming. They used a lot of curves. 4 was very calming. They used a lot of greens. So, and they used a lot of natural materials. Their tiles were very creamy. They used the same tiles throughout. It was consistent. It was coordinated. Where house 2 and house 5, I feel that they wanted to sort of be really out there and make a statement, particularly Leah. She wanted to make statements, but her house is disjointed. It's just too, it doesn't, you don't walk through each space and feel that it flows. Flows the other word I was looking for.
I think the with house 5, to be fair, Leah wanted to make a statement. So for her place, I'd call it eclectic.
Yeah.
And that's a nice way of saying, disjointed.
Yeah.
However,
yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that you could call it eclectic.
My thoughts on the girls, I would say theirs is disjointed. And this is why I say it, because I see it with so many clients' homes when they do their own presentation for market, is they have a lot of really good ideas in isolation. So I think the girls are going, oh, this would look good. And so they try to do their best in each room, not thinking how they link from one area to the next. And that's where it became disjointed. Yeah, because where do I go? What are you telling me?
All vanities are different. They've got the moss. So Russ, just to give you an example, when you're doing 3 bathrooms, there's an element that is the same in each. It might be that the vanities are the same, or the floor tiles and the wall tiles are the same. You got a feature wall, or there is something that joins them together. Where in this house 5, they're all different. You don't know if you're Arthur or Martha when you're walking through that house. And the other thing for me, and this is a detail, they mixed gold. They had cool and warm going on. And I think I said it a lot to Peter. There's too much cool and warm going on in this house. And the same actually a little bit in house 4. There was a little bit of it in house 4, but it was more with the accessories. So the way tiles met up with carpet, wrong color tones. And this is all really getting into detail, but they had gold tapware everywhere, and then they had silver. It's just shouldn't go together. It's just, it doesn't feel right because you got a cool and a warm.
So I'll share a few things, because now we can actually expand beyond what we initially were here tonight. So Frances and I will give our elements of our thoughts as we walked in and out of a whole bunch of homes. So house 4, which is Steph and Gian's home, when we went into the laundry, they had, remember, it was like the French, what was it? The French stone?
Yeah,
what did
French
you
cut
call it again?
stone, yeah.
French cut stone. And so Frances said, oh, that doesn't work with this, because that was our first sighting of it. I liked it. Frances liked it. What we didn't realize, and they didn't pick up in any of the episodes, is they repeated that into their bathrooms. And honestly, it was delicious. It made sense. And I got to say, of all the floors in those wet areas,
beautiful.
It was delicious.
But
and
so
it was
simple.
calming. Yeah.
It was really calming, but it was so simple. But the way that it's cut, so it's, different shapes. It's not all one shape, just to explain it to the listeners. So you might have a square, then they had a rectangle, and the way it all comes together creates, I suppose, a pattern, large scale. But it was so simple and so beautifully executed because they had used it consistently throughout. And I think that's why their house is so calming. The color palette, and they worked up a premise of less is more, except in that kitchen. It will just park their kitchen. It's just...
Now, one of the big things when she was talking about the Japandi effect that she was doing, I will honestly, and I said this to Tanya, I said this to you on the night, I've said this to a few other people, that however good you think it looks on TV, it doesn't do it justice. Where we found with some of the other homes, the TV made it look better. Nothing prepares you for when you walk into the dining area, overlooking the seated area towards the kitchen. Those lights, if we go to the lights into the dining area, spectacular. Yeah, honestly, like you look at
So
that, then you
good.
go, okay, but honestly, the ambience you can't capture in a photo,
But
and the
do you know
quietness.
how cost effective this is to do?
Oh,
These particular ones weren't paper lanterns, but you could do this look with paper lanterns, which are so cost effective and create this look. And it was so calming. You're right, the TV didn't capture this like it did in real life. It
yeah.
was beautiful.
The whole premise of the place, the master bedroom. If we could go into the master, Russ. So yeah, okay, that space. You look at it, and in the photo, you go, "Oh yeah."
Mm,
Here's a few things I noticed. We were talking about airflow. You and I were talking on that day how warm it was. Now those two windows open up, and we could feel the air flowing around that room without. It was the only master bedroom we were in that we could actually feel air movement, and it
mm.
was good. Those elements with the lamp coming over, those day bed. Would you call that a day bed? I'm not
Oh,
sure.
settee. Doesn't
Yes,
matter.
T. So I sat over there. Was it you or Tanya that sat in the
I sat in the chair, super
yeah?
comfy.
And I said to Francis, I would never get to work. Unlike Russ, I would drink a cup of coffee in there and read my paper.
Mm.
And it just made me want to. Yeah, look at you, pagan, nodding your head the other way. Um, it made me want to stay in there. I loved their walk-in wardrobe, for want of a better word. And just look at that. I loved everything about it. There were some
How are
elements
the
that
light
wouldn't.
fittings? The light fittings, they're consistent everywhere.
Oh,
Yeah. Probably a little bit overkill in the wardrobe, but look, it's a minor thing. It did feel much nicer in real life, their master
mm.
bedroom, or the suite, we should call it, than what the photos do it justice. It really is beautiful.
I will say this: when Tanya walked in, I know when we're in the right. When we've moved from home to home, I know we're in the right place by when I watch her reaction. So, like the home we're in now, when we walk left, we got this beautiful sunken lounge, and when only goes down probably about 15 centimeters, but it's very light timber floors in there. The roofs. So we got 9-foot ceilings, except in that one it's 10. And when Tanya walked in, it was exactly the same reaction as to when she walked into that space. And she took it all in. And here's the key thing. You've heard me time and time and time again say this. I design houses for women, not men. And I was watching intently all the females.
I'm with
Yeah,
you, Be Right Agent.
yeah. I was watching all the females walk in, and I was watching all their reactions, and it was telling. And
It,
uh,
it was.
house two, when we walked in, and we got those tiles. So that is is it Leah and Ash? Yeah, Leah and Ash.
Yeah,
Those,
Leah and Ash. Oh,
yeah,
those
motley
tiles.
coloured tiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, there was a schism that was there, but I didn't feel it in that home.
No. So I think the thing that really stood out for me was, and look, I suppose I went in there really wanting to see what it was really like, is the detail on the finish was so terrible.
Yes.
I was so disappointed with the paint finish. When you actually pulled away the curtains, there was writing on the walls from the tradies. It hadn't had, you could still see the raw plaster. The way, there was paint on the grout, sorry, on the tiles, on the carpet. And look, I don't know whether any of these things are going to be fixed before they're actually sold next week, but I was really disappointed with areas not siliconed. That doesn't even meet regulations. So I don't know whether it gets fixed, but I think for houses that are being pitched at 2.5 to 2.75 million, I don't care how they're furnished. That finish needs to be much higher than what it was when we went in. That's my view. I would not be wanting to spend that money on a house with those finishes. It was really poor.
So what some of the things, and I'm not here to, pull everything apart, but as someone who works in this space all the time, there's a thing called a class 5 finish when you're painting. And that happens when we got the right equipment, we sand the walls, it gets all leveled out. So we're dealing in a place with all new plaster. And there were some things I actually saw there that told me it didn't feel like it was new. There were gaps. And when you do level 5 finish, it's absolutely, you run your hand over it, it's silky smooth. And when our guys do it, you don't see roller marks, you don't see brush marks. It's neat and it's crisp and it's clean. And that wasn't what I was seeing with electrical. So we were in, I think it was house 2, where we saw 2 downlights together. Well, they were mismatched downlights, but one was warm and one was cool.
Cool.
There
were 2 different fittings.
So I'm going to send that off to Adele.
Right next to each other.
Yep, I'm going to send it off to Adele.
What I'm curious to know is whether this stuff does get fixed, because there were obviously clearly big patches of paint that were different colours. So does it get fixed? I mean, it is
apparently
next week.
So. Yeah, apparently so. They've got a week to get it done.
We were there a week before the auction because we were there on Thursday. Yep. The auction, I don't know if it's Saturday or Sunday.
This Saturday coming.
I'm getting mixed. They advertised it as Sunday tonight, I thought.
Yeah, no, anyway. But they do the recording on Saturday.
So I'm just curious to know whether it does get fixed. So that would be something that I wouldn't be wanting to pay that money.
So with the trade team, look, there'll be long enough settlement, whether it's 30, 60, 90 days with the building company, our team could have one of those houses. Like if we repainted everything from scratch, there'd be 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Each home, because a lot has to be fixed.
Yeah.
So in and out, all those things, to do a really good job, level 5 finish, you're looking at 2.5 weeks for absolutely everything. Painting's the biggest thing in all those homes.
It is.
Things, and that's what you want to blend. Some of them are design cues. Yeah, people get used to it. And nothing's perfect unless you design it. That's
no. There's things that I do differently. So anyway, it was really interesting to go there and have a look. Oh, you're on mute, Russ.
I love it. Just call me out for being on mute. I sneezed. I'm interested now to know your thoughts on which houses will sell and who do you think's going to win?
Do you want to go first, Peter, or do you want me to go first?
Yep. Okay, so I know this for a fact. I mentioned a few weeks ago, Tom Panos is the auctioneer for House 4, Stefan Gian. For those who are in the closed group, his reasoning was really sound. That's from a sales perspective. There's 2 key driveway entrances into that place.
I want to ask, actually, 1 second before you give your opinion. I want to see what people who are watching this have got to say. So put your suggestions or your comments in the chat. I want to know which house is going to sell and which houses which houses will sell, which houses won't sell, and which house will win.
Yeah,
or which contestants will win.
I'll just say House 4 and House 5 have got a northerly aspect.
Yes.
So from an orientation perspective, they've already got an advantage. No, you can't change that. It is what it is.
Yep. And people pay for that.
They pay a lot appealing.
For it.
Yeah.
Right. So back to you, Pete.
All right. What do we got?
Okay. So look, hand on heart, I'd have to say Stefan Gian. After walking through it, I just think that they're a step above. Now, that is a wise person. Who's this? Di Porteous. She's a smart person. I like her. Easily. I just think it's just so consistent. And I honestly believe even if someone pays top dollar for it, above market at the moment, you hang on to that place. And I made this statement to you when we were there. So earlier on when we started doing this show, Francis, you said there was some conjecture in the streets about what it was doing. we've seen some of the development in and around the corners. My comment at the very beginning is that this will show those in the area what they can do if they've got the budget, of course, with their original homes. And as we noted, there must have been 3 or 4 homes for sale in that street opposite.
Yeah, there's four additional homes are for sale. Yeah.
Yep. And so they're
In
going to
the
go off
street.
the back of this. Yep. And
Of
so
course
this
they
will, I actually think because of this show, Charming Street and the surrounding will change forever. And I think it's a template for really good design and building using existing homes rather than just knock it all over and start again. Those knocked over and started again, they were so boring and vanilla. These homes aren't. So I'm going Steph
and I
down.
think that is really valid. They're definitely a lot more interesting than, especially the development that was around the corner. It's still in Charming Street. So yeah, it's a timeless house. So I'll call it. I think Steph and Gian are going to win. I think they're going to go well above reserve just because it's got a good floor plan. It's calming. I think it's the most timeless out of all of them. The consistency that I was talking about, the calmness, the established trees, the garden. There's space for the kids to play. A lot of those gardens had nothing for families, nothing for little kids. So I think it's got a more, it's more for different types of ages of families, where some of the others would only be for older children. So I think it's, as to Marty Fox's terminology, it's catering to the masses.
Yes.
So for that reason, I think that they're going to win.
And that said, for as good as it looked on TV, the kids' rooms.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like Tanya walked into the girls' room and you know that big basket swing thing? She just wants to jump on that. And
actually, they were better in real life as well. And they were amazing on TV, but they were just breathtaking in real life. Really breathtaking. We all just gasped. They were just beautiful.
Oh. And what I didn't realize,
they had the interconnected bathroom, yeah?
Yeah.
The Jack and Jill. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think it's that functional. It looks great on a floor plan, but in real life, it's actually a real pain because the door gets locked, then you got to walk around and unlock the door, and it's a bit of a pain. But it still looked good.
Yeah, it looked real good.
So you also think Steph and Gian, Peter?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Who's not going to sell?
Oh, look, I don't know that they're not going to sell. I just. I actually think
I'm with you, Russ.
I'm thinking House
2. I think House 2.
It's a bit kitsch.
It's House 5, as Marty said, that's the biggest house. Now, I haven't looked at the floor plan of House 5. I think from its size, it's got a really good sized kitchen. It'll still sell. House 2 has got a pokey kitchen, a pokey living. It's so polarizing. It's not hip. It's just, it's dated before it's even been done. I don't think it'll sell.
House 2 looks like, especially in the kitchen and that dining area, it was designed 3 weeks ago and the styling feels 3 weeks ago already.
It's just terrible.
Yeah.
I'll take a pink, what is it, a pink coffee machine. It's not going to sell. Anyway, that's my view. Let's see what happens.
So what did...
So Russ, House 2 is not going to sell. You think Gian and Steph are going to win? Yeah.
I do. I think they're going to win.
And
like that. If we could just spend maybe 2 more minutes just thinking about the strategy and whether they went into this with a strategy is throw all your money at this in the first couple of rooms and win, and then use that cash to keep getting the dividends. There's got to be a really good strategy for, the next season of the block here, because to accumulate the amount of money that they did and then have to be able to keep reinvesting that into the next room and the next room is a really good strategy.
It's like running a business, isn't it, Russ? You just keep reinvesting.
I know. There are times when you got to take it out.
Well, I think for the purpose, I think Steph had her eye on the end game day one. In the first episode you and I did together, I said she didn't grow ears in the first one. She wanted to show them what she could do. regardless of the brief, and it bit her on the butt. She was emotional, and then they had their builders quit. That was a real mess. But her ears popped out of her head, where Leah just kept saying, "I'm going to show you what I'm going to do."
She's too arrogant.
Yeah, and the thing is, Leah was listening to what Marty was saying, not to guide her, but to validate some of where she was going. She already knows the type of client who's going to buy her home, and she knows that she's appealing. She's got her unique touch. But whether you'd never heard of Japandi before, which I have, and I've followed that styling for some time, even if you've never seen it before, when you see it, you go, it's appealing to so many people.
Yeah, correct.
And offends no one. And that was the comments of the people walking through. And so people actually, it was actually much more hushed tones in House 4, because I think people were just taking it all in.
So I suppose if someone is keen and likes Leah's aesthetic, then that is the home for them. But that is going to be such a small proportion of the market. And if we listen to what Marty said, you've got to appeal to the masses. Leah's appealing to herself. And then you need to like Leah and say, oh, I want to own Leah's house, because that's all her, wasn't Ash. I want to own Leah's house. That's the only person that's going to want to buy that house, unless they really genuinely love her aesthetic. I actually had a look at the other house that they had done, and it was totally different to this. So she is quite versatile, but that house was really appealing to the masses. So I don't understand why she didn't do that this time.
I think she was wanting to show her wares.
Yeah, maybe she's got an interior design business that she wants to run soon and have the Leah aesthetic.
Who's the dark horse?
I think the girls.
I'd like to say House 1.
You know what, Russ? I actually think you might be on the money there, because when you walk into that house, the curves, they fix that living room, and actually the floor plan of their home flows much better than House 2. And House 3 with that pokey dining on top of the kitchen was terrible. So it does still have a calming effect. And even though they didn't win, in terms of how you feel when you walk into that, after House 4, House 1 was the calmest. So I think you could be on the money there.
Interestingly, House 5 doesn't show up on TV, but it's a double step to actually go down into that lounge area. It's a massive. I can see people tripping down that thing.
Too much.
And the tiles on House 2, those eclectic tiles, I said it when I saw them, these will be a slip zone. Both you and I put our feet on it, and you could sense that at some stage someone's going to slip off it.
I'd love it if House 1 got somewhere, because, they haven't won anything. Their house is certainly not the worst. I think
they were, to me, they were lovable the whole way. They right at the start, they stood up for the right things. They were consistent in the way that they carried themselves. That they just were up against some other competitors who were just always a couple of steps ahead. That's just the nature of the game.
Yeah.
But anyway, hey, this is a good time to wrap up. I appreciated your posts on social media, Pete, during the week, and Francis, your tagging. So thank you. Pete, just let everybody know where they can find you. So when next week we're talking about this, you will have been all over it during the week, no doubt.
So you can find me on presentinghamesaustralia.com.au. Find me on social media under the same names. If you type in Peter Karaglanis, you'll also find me. They all link up together. If you want to give a shout out from my website, you can get straight through to me, whether it be through phone number or email. If you have any queries or just some questions, just yell out. I'm happy to help.
Give us your elevator pitch. What do you do at Presenting Homes Australia? We help.
Well, yes. You want me to go verbatim on what we said? I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. we help people maximize the sale of their home by whatever we rate. Essentially, we maximize sales price, have maximum buyer appeal, and minimize time on market. You got me, you cheeky bugger.
For the inside joke, I have a business that helps I have a video production company that helps business owners to clarify their vision about what they do, so that where they can leverage video to amplify their voice in the marketplace. Francis, tell us about where people can find you at White Pebble Interiors, and who if somebody's looking for interior design, you'd be the person to chat to, yeah?
If you're doing a forever home, because that really is what I and my team specialize in. We're very, very passionate about forever homes, particularly with the sustainability slant. And really, we are there to make a difference to the way people live and to create a home that is focused around them and what they love, and really embracing the things that they love, rather than worrying about what the trends are and everything else, because the idea is you're going to stay in your house for 10 plus years.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I'm going to jump in here. When Francis and I know she's just awesome at what she does, and we've caught up before, but when her and I were walking around the property, let me tell you, there wasn't anything she did not notice. And she knew the material, she knew the suppliers.
Yeah.
It was like an explosion in a fax factory. So I can honestly say this, that's what you want. If you're going to have your forever home, I said it about house 4. This house will wear really well. It'll stay in better condition over the longest term. I know for a fact, after speaking with Francis, that you're going to invest in the home, you think long term. You think of the benefits of what that's like, being proud in 10 and 20 years' time.
Thank you, Peter. That's very kind. So whitepebbleinteriors.com.au is where you can find me. You can email me directly there, and then all the socials, particularly Instagram and Facebook, is where we hang out.
Yeah. No, you produce some amazing content online, really inspiring stuff as well. So thank you both for this week's comments. Thank you, Tim, back of house, who's doing switching and swapping between camera views. I hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you next week, where we get to discuss actually the sales. So yeah, it's exciting after 13 weeks.
I know. Have a great week, everyone.